Forward, forward. Then a soft pop. With the sound of a silenced gunshot, the huge ant disappeared quickly. What? Where did the creature go? Baru came back before Jongsu could even begin to look for it. He held something up. What is that? When Jongsu looked closely, he saw it was the head of a magical beast, and not just any magical beast. It was the head of a Death Knight, a very powerful magical creature that was undead. Someone had pulled the head off its body, and the helmet was still on. Oh no, Jongsu fell to the floor. Very scared. The soldiers who were with him quickly gathered around him. Baru looked over the group of hunters and then yelled to the other ants, tossing the knight's head aside without a second thought. She made a loud, strong sound like skra. The army of ants started moving forward together, perfectly in step. Baru looked down at Jongsu without saying anything, then slowly turned and walked with the other ants. The hunters checked on their leader. Boss, President Park, are you okay? Are you all right? Jongsu looked like he had lost all his strength. Yes, I am okay. He felt physically fine, but he was sad for some reason. He felt like the small helper creature had made fun of him. It didn't seem possible, but surely the creature wasn't smart enough to do that. Even so, Jongsu couldn't stop the mission after feeling so embarrassed. He stood up and brushed himself off. We need to go now too. The other hunters looked at him, surprised. What did you say? You want us to follow those hunters? How can we fight with those dangerous creatures? I don't want to. I don't want to either. Jongsu sighed, feeling frustrated. Did he really need to explain everything so clearly? He found the head the ant had thrown away, and showed it to everyone. Wow, is that a head from a Death Knight? A Death Knight? The experienced hunters recognized the helmet, and were very surprised. Jongsu then explained everything calmly. Everyone knows how important essence stones from powerful magical creatures are, right? The other hunters gulped. All we need to do is follow those creatures and collect the essence stones. Just as Jongsu thought, the hunters started to smile. He asked them one last question. Does anyone want to stop now? The hunters moved together perfectly, like a line of ants. What are you waiting for, sir? Quickly, sir, you'll be left behind. Don't just stand there. Leader, Jongsu shook his head. These people really. And so the Knights Guild's attack started again. Jongwoo kept looking down at the ground. The world blurred with people, roads, cars, buildings, rivers, trees, and mountains. One mountain turned into another, and then another. Everything was changing quickly. He was very fast. When nothing was slowing him down, Kaisel could move at unbelievable speeds. If Jinwoo had been a normal person, not a skilled hunter, traveling so fast would have been deadly. But Jinwoo was determined and needed to keep going. The messages from his soldiers were getting fainter. Also, his power level was going down. It was worse than he expected. It meant the Dark Orc soldiers were being defeated, and had to rebuild themselves. An enemy strong enough to destroy those soldiers was a threat to Gina. Jinwoo looked serious. Even if the enemy didn't hurt Gina, they were determined to defeat her. Their eyes were sharp and dangerous. Faster. Kaisel roared the command and sped up. The tall orc warriors were strong, but they weren't as strong as Groktar, the leader of the orc tribe. Groktar motioned for its followers to step back and walked forward. It quickly dodged the attacks from the large orcs, and pulled out a curved sword from its side. Is that the best you can do? The room was covered with about 50 orc bodies. 50 of Groktar's fighters had been defeated by these 3 large orcs. Try to give me a better fight, you strong orc warriors. The leader focused its anger and swung its sword powerfully. Groktar's sword moved quickly through the air, cutting through the tall orc's armor. Ijia! The screams weren't from those being attacked but from the people behind them. Groktar frowned. Annoying pests. They would be next after the tall orcs. Groktar sliced off a tall orc's arm, and quickly cut its throat, as if he was bored with the fight. Shock. The orcs who had been pushed back outside the classroom by their enemies cheered. Groktar, Groktar. However, Groktar's eyes moved quickly, as the orc with no head turned into black smoke, and then appeared again, looking like it had never been hurt. Was this a magic trick? The same thing happened many times. Groktar, Groktar shouted angrily. It kept defeating the large orcs repeatedly, but the smaller creatures always came back. It could destroy them many times, even hundreds or thousands, but the fighting would never stop, and all the while, a voice inside its head kept telling it to attack people. It felt a pulsing pain throb. Grokter had a headache from the constant bothering. But it also couldn't ignore the tall orcs who were attacking people. I have to stop this, it thought carefully. If the tall orcs were created by magic, someone must be controlling them. Over many years of fighting, Grokter had seen all sorts of spells, so it knew how to end this trick. Her, the human woman standing behind the orcs, and holding her breath, was somehow connected to them, even if it was a weak connection. Grokter's eyes flashed. Is it you? The beast turned its anger towards her. Gina quickly looked at Grokter and shook. She seemed to know something important. Grokter trusted its feeling and pointed at Gina, calling out to the others, "Stop her." Almost immediately, Grokter's guards moved from where they were watching, and rushed toward Gina. As they moved, the tall orcs didn't pay attention to Grokter and quickly went to stop the guards. I knew it. Grokter had guessed correctly. It went toward Gina while the tall orcs were busy. So it was you. Grokter grabbed Gina's neck with one hand. Gina couldn't even yell, because of the pressure on her throat. Grokter tilted its head. The woman's neck looked very thin and delicate. Could she really use powerful magic to make warriors live forever? There was only one way to find out. I guess I'll know the answer when I defeat her. Just as Grokter was about to hurt the girl, "Skrrr," a loud roar from a winged dragon echoed in the distance. Suddenly Grokter felt a shiver run down its spine. What was that? Worry seemed to make time slow down, and its strong warrior senses started to warn it of danger. A dump. Its heart pounded in its ears. It would not survive if it stayed there. Grokter was a skilled warrior and his senses were very sharp, almost like he could predict what would happen next. And he did now. Grokter quickly let go of the girl and jumped back toward the door. Boom! A loud explosion filled the air, and glass shattered everywhere. The orcs guarding the door stepped back as their leader suddenly appeared before them. Grokter carefully breathed, and watched what was happening. He sensed a powerful energy coming from a man he had never seen before, who now stood where the girl had been. Grokter then looked toward the windows in the corner of the room. The whole wall was suddenly destroyed as if something very large had hit it. Did he come in by breaking the window? Even with its excellent eyesight, Grokter couldn't see what Jinwoo was doing. It was very surprised to face such a strong enemy and felt nervous. A drop of sweat ran down its head. Skrrr. Grokter looked up to see where the loud noise was coming from. It appeared from above. A strong new enemy was flying around like a bird looking for food. This fight could be hard. Grokter felt strangely uneasy, but the enemy didn't pay attention to the leader or its helpers. Instead, it went to see how the woman was doing. Grokter spoke to the new enemy. "I am Grokter of the Red Blade tribe." This greeting was only for enemies strong enough to be a threat. After introducing himself, Grokter asked, "Who are you?" Jinwoo looked up and said softly, "Be quiet and stay where you are." Could this human actually understand the orc language? But his surprise didn't last long. None of the orcs, not even Grokter, would move because of how strong Jinwoo's voice sounded. Cough, cough. Jinwoo rubbed his sister's back and carefully checked Gina to see if she was hurt. He was relieved to see she didn't seem seriously injured, except for a clear handprint on her neck. Jinwoo frowned, looking closely at the mark. "Are you alright, brother?" As soon as she stopped coughing, Gina hugged him tightly, and cried. He softly patted her hair, like you would comfort a sad little kid. Her brother? If he is Gina's brother. Oh, the other students suddenly understood who the man in front of them was. Jinwoo Sung, a very powerful hunter. They were safe. The students started to cry when they saw him. This time their tears weren't from sadness and fear, but from happiness and relief. Sob. "It's alright. You're safe now." Jinwoo tried to comfort his crying sister, and he checked the whole school to see if anyone else was there. He only found the 17 people in that classroom. A worried look crossed his face. Jinwoo gently moved his sister away from him, even though she was holding on tight. Then he created shadow soldiers equal to the number of students. "My soldiers will take you," he said. The students nodded, and the soldiers carefully picked them up and began to carry them out. Jinwoo made sure Igra stayed with Gina to protect her. "You can go now. I'll meet you downstairs when I'm finished here." Usually Gina would have wanted her brother to go with her, even though he was a very strong hunter, but she didn't ask this time. Something about Jinwoo's serious face made her feel uneasy, so she just nodded. When Jinwoo gave a signal, the soldiers jumped down through the broken windows, carefully carrying the students. The orcs, who were almost done with their hunt, got angry when they saw their prey escaping, but Jinwoo turned and glared at them. He said, "I told you to wait." All the monsters stopped moving. The orcs didn't even think about fighting back. One of them looked scared and watched Jinwoo carefully. It quietly spoke to its leader. "Sir, be quiet." Grokter understood Jinwoo's power. Now wasn't the time to worry about someone who seemed weak. A hunter was standing right there. The fight to see who would hunt, and who would be hunted, was about to begin. But I can't let them leave so easily. Grokter quietly told his soldiers what to do, and 2 guards moved forward without making a sound. Jinwoo turned around again, after making sure all the students had been safely led out of the classroom. He didn't want them to leave because he worried they might get hurt. These creatures were orcs. Jinwoo knew he could defeat them very quickly, but he didn't want his sister or the other children to witness the fight. With no one watching, Jinwoo felt free to act. Jinwoo quickly turned his head toward the hallway stairs. 2 orcs who had been trying to hide were coming down the stairs. They were trying to find the students, but Jinwoo wasn't worried. Agris was with the group, and Kaisel floated above them. All that was left to do was defeat the monsters. Jinwoo breathed out slowly, his breath full of magical energy. Grokter asked again, "Who are you? How do you know our language?" Jinwoo didn't answer and kept walking toward the orcs. Grokter showed his teeth. Understanding that Jinwoo wouldn't respond, "Attack!" the leader shouted, and the strong orc warriors all jumped at Jinwoo. They growled and roared. It seemed to the hunter that the orcs were moving very slowly, almost as if time had stopped. Jinwoo moved quickly through the orcs, defeating them all. He didn't even need to use a weapon, choosing to use just his finger. When his fingertip touched an orc, part of its body would burst open. He defeated more than 20 orcs very quickly, stopping right in front of Grokter. The orc leader could only watch the fast movements Jinwoo made as he fought. Its voice shook. "What is that?" Before Grokter could swing its curved blade, Jinwoo grabbed the monster's jaw with his left hand. The orc chieftain let out a quick gasp. "Ugh." Jinwoo walked forward and slammed the beast's head against the wall. Wham! The sound echoed loudly in the empty hall. Jinwoo looked around the area from one end to the other. The hallway was filled with students who had been defeated. It was a terrible sight, but Jinwoo carefully looked at each one. He wanted to be sure the person who did this would face consequences for their actions. The hunter looked back at Grokter. Why? Jinwoo's voice was very cold. "Why does your group want to kill people?" Grokter had given up trying to fight back. Shaking, it answered. "A voice inside our heads tells us to kill people." Jinwoo frowned. Kill people? He had heard something like this before, but he thought people meant hunters. Now he understood the word meant exactly what it said. "What about me?" Jinwoo asked another question. "Does the voice tell you to hurt me as well?" Jinwoo moved closer to Grokter, so the orc had to look into his eyes. Whatever he saw there made the orc jump back quickly. "Please, I'm sorry." Then something very surprising happened. The strong warrior from the powerful orc group started to cry. Jinwoo's anger began to fade as he looked at the frozen magic beast. He understood now. This creature didn't see him as a human either. It didn't matter though. Jinwoo didn't worry about what magic beast thought of him. He defeated them because they were dangerous to people. Grokter cried loudly, shaking with fear. "Please, I'm sorry, I accept your apology," said Jinwoo. Then, he created a magical dagger in his hand. "But it won't be easy to make up for what you've done." The soldiers from the Knights Guild were amazed as they watched the monsters fight. "Oh, how is this even possible? Was this really a battle?" The ants quickly defeated the magical creatures that were like zombies and started eating them. Chomp, chomp. The hunters were very surprised and shocked by what they saw. Will anything be left if they eat everything like that? That's right. They are even eating the special stones inside them. The hunters were upset to see such valuable stones end up inside the ants. Urim could not watch any longer, and quickly did something to help. "Wow, that is really valuable." When she tried to get the body of a vampire, a very angry ant attacked her. Ouch! The ant's claw cut Urim's arm, and she fell backward. Thump! Oh! She rubbed her sore bottom and tried to stand, but as she did buzz, she looked up and saw the same ant standing right over her. The creature opened its mouth wide, as if to bite her. Yurim was frozen with fear. Ugh. Just then, Baru arrived and quickly spun the ant around. Just like one of its own had done to Yurim. Baru pushed his face close to the ant soldier, and opened his mouth wide. A loud roar came from Baru, making the ant soldier shake and look away. It was scared of this creature, which was much stronger than it. As soon as Baru let go, the ant ran away quickly. Baru walked over to Yurim, who looked confused, and held out her hand. Yurim was surprised, but she took Baru's hand, and the ant helped her stand up. Thank you. Yurim stopped speaking when she noticed a soft blue light around Baru's fingers. Is that healing magic? Yurim's eyes grew big with surprise. The cut on her arm got better right away when the blue light touched it. After Baru checked to make sure the cut was healed, she yelled at the other ants. Skarava! They stopped eating and started moving further into the dungeon. Yurim whispered to herself as she watched Baru walk away. How can a small helper creature heal better than me? Hunters went to the school and used a magical compass to find their way to a room upstairs. They sensed a huge amount of magical energy coming from the hallway on the 6th floor. The leader turned to look at the other hunters. Be careful. His teammates nodded in agreement. At the top of the stairs on the 6th floor, they found what was causing the problem. Oh, a man with a bloody knife stood over an orc. He had cut into many pieces. Was that? The leader of the group suddenly had trouble breathing when he looked into Jinwoo's cold eyes, but he quickly took a deep breath and grabbed his radio. Yes. Hunter Jinwoo's Sung is here. He looked around and said, all clear. Because of what happened, many people gathered near the school. My son is inside. Please let me pass. I need to see what happened myself. Oh my goodness. I can't believe this is happening. If the police and the Hunters Association hadn't been there to help, the area would have been completely crowded. News reporters who came quickly after hearing the news were filming everything. Huh? It's Jinwoo Sung. Take a picture of him. Jinwoo moved away from the reporters and walked quietly towards someone who looked like they worked for the Hunter Association. The worker became nervous when they saw Jinwoo's serious face. Hunter Sung, do you know where my sister is? Your sister was taken to Seolishan Hospital with the other students. Jinwoo nodded sadly and walked away. The worker breathed out a sigh of relief. When the medical team arrived, they immediately checked on Gina, just like the association told them to do. Fortunately, she was not seriously hurt. She only had some scrapes on her neck and wrists. Jinwoo probably already knew this because he was the one who helped her, but he still seemed upset. Gina was safe because Jinwoo got there when he did. But what if he hadn't arrived in time? The staff member felt a chill thinking about that possibility. It was a big relief that she was okay. But Jinwoo took out his phone feeling sad. His mom would probably find out about this. Many students had been hurt by magical creatures. So his mother would be very upset when she heard the news. He needed to tell her Gina was safe before she heard what had happened. But just as he was about to call, a voice spoke from behind him. We have sent someone to your mother, Hunter Sung. She is probably being taken to the hospital in a car right now. Jinwoo turned around. Sir. President Gun Hee-go stood there with a very serious look on his face. Matching how Jinwoo felt, even though this wasn't his fault, it was clear the head of the Hunters Association felt responsible for this terrible thing. They couldn't stop. Jinwoo thanked the older man for thinking of his family even now, but President Go shook his head. We should be thanking you. 17 students. Thanks to Jinwoo, 17 more people were saved than would have been. We are very grateful to you. Jinwoo smiled. But he was also a little sad. He wished he could have saved even more students if he had been able to use his special ability. President Go seemed to understand how Jinwoo was feeling. He shook his head. This wasn't the time to worry about feelings. He had work to do. President Go looked up and asked, Are you going to the hospital? Jinwoo thought about going to the beach for a moment, but decided against it. His energy levels were still good, which meant Baru and the ants were doing well. That wasn't a surprise, after all. So he didn't need to worry about the attack. Yes, Jinwoo replied. Then let me drive you. President Go offered. That's all right, sir. Jinwoo said. Let's go together. I have something I want to tell you. Jinwoo hadn't agreed at first because he thought it was just a polite offer, but he decided to accept President Go's sincere request. Okay? Thank you. Jinwoo followed the president to his car, and they both sat in the back. Even though the inside of the car was large, the backseat felt small because of President Go's big size and Jinwoo's broad shoulders. The driver Jin Chul-woo and Jinwoo nodded to each other through the rearview mirror. As the car started to move, the president began to speak carefully, and he looked worried. We might have known this would happen. Jinwoo was confused. Did the association allow this to happen, even if they could have stopped it? Before Jinwoo became angry, President Go took out his phone to show something on the screen. It was a graph of some sort. This shows more special doorways appearing in Seoul over the last 6 months. The line on the graph went up quickly at the end. The numbers are the same everywhere in the world. The second graph looked almost exactly like the first one. Jinwoo might have thought the charts were identical if President Go hadn't explained. More gates are opening quickly all over the world. He looked worried. But that isn't the only unusual thing happening. He put his phone back in his jacket pocket and went on speaking.